game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunkered down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby Smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't come to play, we ain't come to play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut
tape.
up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You like that? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guide Network on a fabulous Thursday evening. A little bit of change up for you guys, a little bit audible, okay? I like my audience to be nice and adaptable, okay? It's a sudden change game, the one that we follow, this game of football, right? Sudden changes every once in a while. Ooh, instant turnover. We had a turnover tonight, all right? They got a big hockey game. Is it a game? Hockey game? Hockey match?
Sure.
Some folks on some ice going crazy in about an hour. And a lot of people that I talked to that listen to this show told us they wasn't watching this. They was going to be patriotic tonight at 8 o'clock. So we moved it up an hour. Welcome into tonight's show. It is a loaded one. All right. It is only an hour tonight. We're going to do 30 minutes of national stuff, 30 minutes of local stuff. It's jam-packed. Too tight of a schedule for even an opening. Here, the topic rundown in the national hour. We got spring games in danger across college football. Ryan Day had some comments about the college football playoff on multiple fronts, both a little bit of changes in auto buys and some changes in actually how the events feel for those participants. In-state rivalries potentially in danger in college football. We got another quote from Alabama players that we have to address, and we got a slammed local hour for you guys with plenty of changes on the Georgia front. Let's get after it. First and foremost, the first spring domino has officially fallen, boys. I would say it's the first one of this year. I think the first spring domino that, hey, these spring games might be a thing of the past was last year when Ole Miss kind of made a mockery out of theirs. Ohio State was up there tagging off. All right, now we have Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns officially canceling their spring game. He was on with Kay Adams today. I don't know why Kay was out there in Austin, but she was. Did an interview with Steve Sarkisian, and Sarkisian was asked about whether or not they would be canceling their spring game. And here were his quotes. And before I read these to you, I do got to say, I really appreciate college football coaches that, I shouldn't say I appreciate it. This quote from Steve Sarkisian is like ready for politics. This dude is so, like, based off how he dodged this actual reasoning behind canceling his spring game, this is as good as it can get because you blame it on stuff that really doesn't make sense, to be honest with you. I want to read it to you. Quote, "No, we are not going to have a spring game. Well, I think it's a couple reasons why. Over the last 2 years, we've played 30 games, and that's a lot of college football. 14 2 years ago, 16 this year, and as I've just just mentioned, we've had 25 guys invited to the NFL Combine over the last 2 years. So we've got a lot of young players on our roster. We have 21 mid-year high school kids that just showed up. The development that's needed for those guys to get ready for the fall is a little different than it used to be. Our approach is going to be a little bit more NFL driven, kind of an OTA style early on. I just don't know. Rolling the ball out, playing the game when we got 15 practices is the best for us. Okay, so in translation, Steve Sarkisian has now told you that they don't want to play a spring game for 2 reasons. 1, they've played way too much football, and 2, they got guys who haven't played enough football.
Yeah.
Is that how that came out to you? Because that's how that came out to me.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Now, we know why these guys are actually canceling their spring games. And they could say what they want to say, but we know why. What is the number one reason why coaches are afraid to play a spring game on national television?
You got to hide them players.
Your roster poached.
It's anti-poaching. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to steer away, like the guy said right here, from folks poaching their rosters. The exact reason that Matt Rule came out and said that they probably won't have one out there in Nebraska. Sarkisian avoided that one. I'm telling you, that's probably one of the main concerns. There was another one that kind of came to my attention today via talking to sources around college football about this topic, right? Hey, are you going to be canceling your spring games? What are you fearful of? Why are you worried about canceling spring games if you are? Poaching was obviously a topic of discussion with folks that I talked to today. But one of the things that I didn't come to realization of until I started talking to folks around college football today was that these things are huge budget losses, okay? These spring games at big programs like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Ole Miss, all of these spring games are net losses for these football programs because it is a typical day of stadium operations. You got to pay for all the security. You got to pay for all of the employees. You got to pay for all the concession stands. While meanwhile, most of these schools are not charging any admission for these things, right? They're letting them in, free tickets, maybe giving them to some students. Maybe they're charging $5 as just a notion of purchasing the ticket, but they're not making money on these things. And you guys have known by listening to this show, these budgets are under further attack than they've ever been in the world of college athletics because of the revenue sharing model coming down the pike. So you're looking at athletic departments staring at a $20 million deficit next year off rip. They know off rip they're going to have to pay out $21 million roughly to their student athletes as an agreement of this rev sharing model coming out of House vs. NCAA. So more so than ever, we are seeing these college football budgets being squeezed out of every single bit they possibly can be, which means you're going to have some cuts like the spring game.
So I've got 2 questions coming off this. The first question is, do you think the next step of this is having some sort of exclusive spring game where you can pay a certain premium membership to watch an inter-squad practice like you do with boosters now, but kind of make it more premium? I
think we're going to see a vast stretching of those, types of events, right? I think the one we talked most about last year was Ohio State's event. Ohio State invited like 1,000 students and it felt like 1,000 boosters out there to watch spring practice. The student fees obviously weren't anything. They let the students come out there for free, but you're right. There is an opening of these collective side of the business where they're like, hey, you're a booster that loves Ohio State football. You're a booster that loves Alabama football. For $1,000, you can come watch practice. That kind of thing is definitely happening, and I certainly see an avenue for that going because we're in an era of college football where as much money as we can bring in is as much money as we can pay out to our players on our roster. I definitely see that.
Well, too, when I hear things like we're going to move more to an NFL front, maybe like OTA type sessions.
For sure.
I mean, that kind of panders to that idea as well of we could have people pay to come watch this because, I mean, NFL, when they hit training camp, now I know the Falcons do it for free, and I think most do, where fans can just come and watch. Yeah. But it also creates a setting to where you could invite people, hey, if you want to pay X amount of dollars to come watch today's practice or whatever, you absolutely could. So I think it definitely opens the door for that. When I heard NFL style, that's kind of where my mind went.
And I do think there would be a good avenue for college football to maybe explore is these types of OTAs. Now, the question I would have is, are they going to be inter-squad OTAs? Mm-hmm. Are you going to go out and practice for a week against some other team? Or how is this going to work, these types of OTAs? Which doesn't OTA stand for optional team something?
I have no idea.
I don't even know what OTA stands for, but to me, it means we're practicing against somebody else. That's what I think of when I think of OTAs. So we'll see if that ultimately comes into college football. This is not the first time this has happened, and I certainly don't think this will be the last.
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point, too, of if, like, say Texas wants to do an OTA against Rice. Like, I think the further you get into college football, of like when you add more conference games to Texas' schedule and things like that, there may not be room for Texas to have these smaller schools on their schedule and pay them to come play a regular season game. So maybe this is a new avenue for that. Of we're not going to have you on our schedule, but we'll pay you so many dollars to have an OTA with us for a week. We both get some work in. You still get your dollar amount that you would typically get.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see that happening, but then it becomes at that point, like, is Texas going to really want to pay money for something that would be even less of a return for that? Like, OTAs, I would imagine, aren't going to bring as much. Even if they only sell 80% of their tickets, Texas is still going to fill and make money on a stadium game where you actually play Rice in a game. So it's all interesting stuff to think about.
Bottom line, budgets are being squeezed on these athletic departments, and honestly, I can relate when you're looking at your budget and you really got to squeeze it down and save every dollar you possibly can. Man, it sure could be a good place and a good opportunity for you to use a tool like Rocket Money. You know what I mean? What is Rocket Money? If you're asking that today, I got an answer for you right here. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions today and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/game on today. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/game on. rocketmoney.com/game on. Atta boy, boys. We're on fire tonight. I can't wait to see how easy this I'm just gonna do an hour stuff is. You know what I mean? Dude, everybody else out here just doing an hour. We're 2-hour folks around here. So we get to walk down this easy path, walk a little half a mile in somebody's shoes right here tonight.
Light work.
Not even just 2-hour show, but we're hour college football, then an hour of just one specific topic that we fill an entire hour for.
I mean, golly, we grind around here. I love it. All right, so spring games, they're in peril. Also in peril, college football playoff, according to everybody. Everybody's got problems with the college football playoff, starting with Ryan Day. Had some comments today about just how the games are ran in these college football playoffs. Now, this will curtail us into another discussion about what we are calling the auto-buy canned response from SEC and Big Ten officials and coaches. But he had some comments on I think it's a 3 and Out podcast with Urban Meyer.
Yes.
This is Urban Meyer's podcast. Quote, then this is Ryan Day talking. The national championship is not run by a bowl. The other ones are, but even the ones that are run by a bowl, as you guys remember, they used to be events. There was a lot that came with that. Now that's no longer the case. It's just like being on the road. It's just like being on a road game, except you're there a day earlier, but there's no events. Like nobody going on any events. Nobody's leaving the hotel. I think that we need to consider moving the hotels outside of these big cities because we're not going to these events anymore. So I think being a little bit more secluded and looking at some of those locations is just better for everybody, especially the players. And I think we need to pour into those players. These are the guys that are doing that work. So I think we need to do and we need to have the best food for them as possible. I think we should be under the best conditions. I think we should try to find as many mementos for these guys that possibly can be done. Just things that money can't buy, but it stays with them forever. Now, I want to talk about this because I actually had the opportunity to cover the national title this year. And I think this is mainly what he's referring to. And we watched it out there with the Sugar Bowl in the first round of the playoff, second round of the playoff games with Georgia and Notre Dame. However, that one was a little bit different because there was a terrible thing that happened in New Orleans, right?
But even leading up to it.
Even leading up to that, that's what I was going to talk about. Even leading up to the tragic event down there in New Orleans, these guys were basically secluded in their hotel room, having team meetings, and then shipped and bussed over to the stadium for a 90-minute practice, and then shipped back to the hotel to be in a secluded area for what was, for Georgia, 4 or 5 days. For Ohio State, this is, a 3-day event. When you come to Atlanta, the game's on Monday, you fly in on Friday, Saturday you're sitting there doing player availability, Sunday the coaches talk, but outside of that, there is nothing for these guys to do. They feel trapped inside these hotel rooms. Not a very enjoyable experience for what is the biggest game of your life.
Yeah, and I feel like teams used to do this. Like, I remember there would be Family Feud games between the two teams. Like, I know for a lot of the Orange Bowl trips, they would go to the beach for a day and just hang out. So I don't know if this is something that's stopped necessarily, or if maybe it's just they've done away with it for certain games, or if the Sugar Bowl specifically was unique to that, or the national championship. But
I think the more and more playoff games that we get, the more that is a playoff product. The playoff product is made for television. It is not a bowl environment.
No.
Right? It's too total. That's what he's getting at right here, is that these playoff games aren't bowl games anymore. They're playoff games. They're made for television products. But we got guys that are spending 5 days in New Orleans trapped in a hotel room, where it used to, you'd spend a day at the hospital, doing the kids' visits, okay, and then you'd go to bowling or whatever with the opposing team, like you mentioned. I mean, one of the most famous college football stories of all time was when Miami got into that argument and shouting match in the fatigues at the pre-Orange Bowl dinner against, was it Penn State?
Yeah.
Right? That's like one of the most famous stories in college football. And we're not going to have that. Not that we need that, but we don't have any type of events around these games. I guess that doesn't matter to the common fan, but these players that are involved in it, it definitely feels different.
Yeah, I can remember, I think it was 2017 when Georgia went out to the Rose Bowl. I think their team did a trip out to Disneyland. All the players got to go hang out, because there was that video of Nick Chubb scared for his life. It just felt like a bigger deal. And I understand, because now that we've added more playoff games, like, you can't do that for every single setting, and it has kind of diminished somewhat of like the bowl environment, the bowl game atmosphere.
Hell, in 2017 at the Rose Bowl, we had a musical career get started with the Georgia Bulldogs. Shout out Wicks Patton. I went to high school with that kid.
Did you?
Swear.
That's an odd claim to fame.
Yeah, went to high school with that guy. He popped rapping. I'm like, what? First of all, was shocked. He, ended up making it on a Georgia roster, even though he walked on. But like, hey, shouts to you, Wicks Patton. I don't know if he's listening, but yeah.
See him downtown from time to time.
I bet you do. Have you ever heard any of his songs?
Yeah, he actually had one I liked for a while. It was called Come Alive.
Hell yeah,
Not
Wicks
bad.
Patton. He just goes by Wicks now, right?
Yeah, it's just Wicks.
Yeah. Wicks Patton sounds like he lives on a country club, I had to bet. Just Wicks Patton. You hear the name Wicks Patton.
Wicks is a good name, honestly.
Wicks is a great name. I wanted to talk about this, obviously, but I really wanted to talk about what happened.
We froze that.
We froze? That's all good.
Oh, you touched
We're
the
gonna
cable,
fix it.
J. Will?
We're going to fix it. Don't you worry about that.
Not my fault.
My boy's on his bag right now. All right. So he's going to get this figured out. Don't you dare worry about that, chat. I'm going to wait until you get it fixed before
Fixed.
Already fixed. Look at the kid. So he has comments and concerns about how the actual events are held. But the other comment Ryan Day had, and this is what we're calling the auto buy canned response from the SEC and the Big Ten, was about auto buys. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but the entire world of college football is out here complaining about the auto buy system, like we've been complaining about for about a year now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, they got the clear talking points. I heard Petiti mention this. I heard Greg Sankey mention this. Ryan Day came out the 4 hours after with a comment about how we need to get rid of auto buys. Auto buys, going to be gone. If these guys are talking about it, they run the sport, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, it is, when you hear this much power, like you've got the Big Ten commissioner, the SEC commissioner, arguably two of the most important, powerful figures in college football, combined with the reigning national championship head coach, all saying these things about how, hey, this is a system that really doesn't work. We need to change it. And by the way, we've seen all the inklings already. So it's not going to be a surprise when it does come down.
Oh, we're on a heater.
So,
we're on an absolute heater.
So, yeah, it makes sense that you're talking about it now.
I love the comment from Sankey where he's like, yeah, we got our own opinions, but we have to wait. We have to wait and allow the Big 12 and allow the ACC and Notre Dame to make their feelings known. And then we're just going to, nope, we're doing it how we want because they have power.
My whole thing with this, though, is these comments are coming out just 1 year after the expanded playoff, but I have a hard time believing that these head coaches are having an issue with it just after 1 year. Like, I would imagine that when the proposal came of, here's the 12-team playoff, here's how it works, we're going to give auto buys to the conference championship winners. I can imagine that head coach was like, this is dumb, this is stupid, I don't know why we do that. Why are we not using their opinion to begin with?
The original reason for auto buys was to incentivize conference championships.
Yes.
Yep.
Everyone worried that when we went to 12, people would be at the end of the year posturing for seeding and positioning, and then they would just nix conference championships. So they tried to tie meaningfulness behind the conference championships. But as we mentioned last year, I thought the only problem with the 12-team playoff was the auto buys. I don't mind anything else about it. Apart from the scheduling, you got to move this season up, man. I can't believe it, but we got fatigue. We got like fandom fatigue late in mid-January towards that national title. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with a lot of people making their mind up that Ohio State was just going to run through everybody, and they stopped watching it. But we definitely had some type of fan fatigue towards the end of the year.
Well, it's fatigue, maybe because it was Ohio State, but I really do just think it was. Like, there comes a point where you get so detached from the regular season, and you get so far from the regular season that you're watching playoff games, and you're almost like, well, heck, it's kind of hard to remember how we even got to this point with these teams. Like, I don't even know what happened in the regular season for Ohio State to, like, almost forgotten that they had ups and downs this year. Like, you're watching Ohio State make this historic playoff run after having a lapse in the final week of the regular season, and that Ohio State-Michigan game felt like it was 6 months ago from the time that they won a national title. So it's kind of hard to even remember, like, man, what a great story Ohio State had this year for Ryan Day, the fact that they bounced back from 2 losses in the regular season and went perfect in the playoff. Like, it's hard to attach those things together, and I think that's part of what makes college football so special, is because there are great storylines. They're very unique from any other sports. You can't get too far from those to where the point is you don't even remember them.
Yeah, I think that's just a product of the 12-team playoff. Like, I don't think moving the season 2 weeks up is going to fix that, because it's still going to be an elongated playoff run now, where we've got to get these, and it's going to even be larger now if you expand the playoff, which it seems like that's going to go down. So the more games you play in the postseason where it's a playoff title, like, the less the regular season, it feels like 2 separate seasons.
Moving the schedule up won't fix the fatigue, but it will fix you avoiding the NFL.
That's true.
You do not need to be playing college football playoff games on playoff NFL Sundays.
No, you don't. But I also don't think that's ever been a huge issue for the fans. I know they're tired of the Monday national championship, but college football fans will watch college football.
We hope.
Yeah.
We hope.
Our business kind of depends on it.
Absolutely. Now, this is a topic we actually kind of touched on the other day with college football playoff expansion, and it potentially making rivalry games and certain matchups mean a little bit less. Now there's concern that some of these in-state rivalries might be removed entirely. All of the in-state, out-of-conference rivalry games that are annual are in kind of peril right now, at least according to some reports, because we are going to 9. I don't think there's any doubt about this. We're going to 9 conference games in the SEC to reach an alignment and scheduling alignment with the Big Ten. Therefore, they can have those crossover games. So not only are we removing a non-conference game from SEC teams, but we're also eventually going to start incorporating some of these Big Ten SEC crossover games. So we're going to eliminate even some of these, if we go to 9 and there's 3 out of conference games, it's not going to be UAB 3 times over for these SEC football programs. It's going to be UAB 2 times over and Ohio State, UAB 2 times over and Oregon. So how are you going to be able to fit in games like South Carolina and Clemson, and games like Georgia and Georgia Tech, some of these annual out-of-conference games that are, like I said, in peril because we're cutting down the amount of weeks that you can actually squeeze these in almost by twofold, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the interconference games and removing some of these out-of-conference matchups.
It would have to take like these 2 schools wanting to prove a point and continue to please their fan bases of, we're going to schedule it anyway. So
Kentucky, Louisville, same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State.
I can tell you from our base point right here, like Kirby, I highly doubt Kirby Smart allows Georgia Tech to be removed out of the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Highly doubt it.
And
but some of these other coaches may not have as many emotional ties to those rivalry games as others.
And the Clemson, South Carolina one can be a point of example of this, because Shane Beamer and Dabo Swinney don't have direct ties to either of their programs. But one thing that I've kind of learned over the past couple of years is both of those fan bases care a hell of a lot about the Palmetto Bowl. I mean, the entire season, it feels like, is built up to that final game of the year for those 2 teams. And it's kind of like getting reignited a little bit because Clemson was so dominant for a while. South Carolina was very much up and down, and now South Carolina is kind of bouncing back. So I think it would be programs like that saying, screw it, we don't care. Like, we're going to play it anyways. If we have to play Clemson and Ohio State in the same season, then so be it. We have to do this.
My initial gut reaction to this would be that there's no way they get something that traditional. And then you think, well, Texas A&M pieced out on an in-state rivalry so they could go to a better conference. So, I mean,
Not a bad point.
Teams follow dollar signs, which is probably an alarming trend because there will probably come some team. I don't think it's going to be Georgia, Georgia Tech. I don't think it's going to be Clemson, South Carolina. Those are true rivals that hate each other. But I think there will be at some point a rivalry game that goes like, we don't need this in-state rivalry anymore.
The hatred between Texas and Texas A&M is the reason the Pac-12 went under.
Yeah.
I don't know if people remember that, but I think it was in 2012 when Texas came out with the Longhorn Network. They and Oklahoma was flirting with the Pac-12. They almost to the point where it was done. They were going to the Pac-12, and then Texas A&M got, I believe, the governor involved and was like, "Nuh-uh, y'all ain't getting out of here." And then Texas A&M 2 years later dips out for the SEC. Woo! Troublesome, and we're all together now. In the SEC. So yeah,
the dollar signs brought us here.
Yep, dollar signs brought us here. And, we've been making decisions based off money in college football since 2000, I feel like. Well, 1998. When we moved to the BCS model, that was the first sign of, hey, a lot of money going on around here. We're going to change it. And then we had the 14 playoff and then the 12-team playoff and now going to 14 with all the conference realignment as well. So it's been absolutely insane over the last 25 years of college football. Speaking of insane, 13-13 gets you a 12-year contract extension.
Dude.
10-year contract extension?
When I saw it was extended, I was thinking, fine, this is the typical, like, hey, he's our guy, 2-year extension, $2 million raise. No, this is big boy. You're locked in.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Wisconsin has extended Luke Fickell through 2032.
Yeah.
Did we get an annual amount on this? It's got to be close to $8 million. You don't sign 10-year deals for 6. The market's moved. They signed Luke Fickell through 2032 after going 13-13 in his first 2 years at Wisconsin.
Can you explain this to me? Why you would do this if you're Wisconsin?
This is one of the worst takes I've ever had on this network, by the way. When Luke Fickell took the job at Wisconsin, I think they were 7-5 coming off of old Barry, the old athletic director, kind of taking over for the coach that they'd fired.
Right.
And then Luke Fickell gets the job. And he had just come from Cincinnati, obviously. Did a really good job there, made a college football playoff. Former Ohio State defensive guy, like is a lifer in the world of college football. I had the take that I thought Luke Fickell was such a good football coach that he could take a Division II team into then the Big Ten West and find a way to win 7 games. I think he only won 7 games year one, period.
Yeah.
If that. Not good.
So some information on this contract. It's technically, how it's phrased, it's technically a 1-year extension.
Oh, it's a Venables deal.
Yes, it's a Brett Venables deal.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what this is. But nonetheless, doesn't exactly look great when you're handing out. Like, what's the point of giving Luke Fickell a 1-year extension right now? Do you really need that 1 more year of Luke Fickell right now? Does he mean that much to you? Does his losing seasons really also stretch your heartstrings that much?
Who's sniffing around Luke Fickell right now?
Ohio State was, apparently.
As a DC?
Yeah. They were just going to hire him away from a head coaching job.
Hire him out of a head coaching job for a pay decrease. This is a classic. We just going to act like we gave him an extension. I should have read the fine details on this.
Yeah, I don't even think there was any money tied to it. It was just like another year.
I saw 2032. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Their fan base was. Like, what are we doing? And then they had to read the fine print. It's just a weird PR move from Wisconsin here.
What's the benefit of doing that with Luke Fickell? Like, are you counter-recruiting Luke Fickell right now because, hey, he might not be there in 3 years?
Who's Luke Fickell recruiting against right now? Minnesota?
Maybe.
He ain't recruiting against Ohio State. They ain't going to the same buildings. They ain't going to the same rooms.
That 2030 class means a whole hell of a lot to them, I guess.
I don't get it.
Hey, he's still going to be here. You ain't got to worry about it.
Look, I was a fan. I think he's a good football coach. But he made very weird decisions the first time he went to Wisconsin. In his first year, he's like, you know what? Never been an air raid guy. Let's hire an air raid coach. Coach, you have no wide receivers. We haven't recruited wide receivers in Wisconsin in ever. How are you going to do this? Don't worry about it. We'll be air raid. Terrible. Not good offensively. They were one of the worst offenses in the Big Ten the last 2 seasons. And then I think he changed his entire defensive philosophy as well. He was an odd stack football team at Cincy. I don't believe they play the same style of defense right now at Wisconsin. He changed everything about his personal identity the moment he took the job at Wisconsin.
Fickell, we ain't been recruiting the quarterback position like that. Don't worry. Tyler Van Dyke.
He made a bad decision last year, too, in the portal, I think. Did he bring a guy in last year?
I don't know.
No, it was Van Dyke, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
And now Van Dyke's coming back for another year?
Heck if I know.
Somehow? 19 years in college football?
Sure. I just assume they are now.
Just weird. And again, big Luke Fickell defender, very, very confused off of all the decision-making process, not only from Luke, but Wisconsin as well. But the old Brett, PR move checks out. Makes a whole lot more sense nowadays. All right, we got another. We're calling this we're serious this year. I promise.
Oh, God.
Quote from Alabama. Now, I had a source tell me mid-season this year, hey, them boys don't practice. They don't practice hard. They do not grind out there at Alabama. And I took it with a grain of salt from the source because I was like, well, to be fair, like, you were around one of the biggest dictators ever in this sport that grinded these people down into the ground. So anything opposite of that or anything like relatively different at all is going to feel like just the world has changed for you when you go around that building. So I took it with a grain of salt. And then I see all of these comments. We had an offensive lineman about a month ago basically go on a podcast.
Can't be late to workouts anymore.
Can't be late to workouts no more.
No more.
Shit, that was an option? Y'all had an option to be late to workouts. That's pretty insane to me. Now we got this one. Quote. Let me get you actually who said this. This is Montgomery. I don't know who Montgomery is. I just got the quote for you. It's like more dialed in now, more serious. It's not like we ain't never been serious about anything because there's things that we do, but we just got to get back to the old days to when Bama does nothing but win and win championships. That's the main focus right now, Montgomery said on a recent episode of the Bama Standard podcast. Quote, we ain't playing no more games with anybody. Anybody on staff, anybody that's a player, like nothing. Don't be late to nothing. Do your work on time. Do all the little stuff great. Do the little stuff right, and we will be rewarded in the end. So we've just got to get back to doing the little things the right way, and then we'll be just fine.
You know how this reads to me?
How?
This reads to me like playing video games, like playing a game like Call of Duty, and
You want me to play for real?
And you're just chilling, and then all of a sudden you check the scoreboard, you're like, dang, I'm 5-10. Let me lock in right quick. Hold on now. We can't be casual about this no more.
Let me sit up in my chair
Let me
right
sit
quick.
up right quick. Let me get right.
Man, you're bringing back just PTSD for me in the video game world. I had a buddy, lifelong friend, Eric Lloyd, was in my wedding. I could be just waxing that dude 28-0 in NCAA growing up. And he would say this one thing. He'd look at me and go, hey, you ready for me to start playing for real for now? For now?
You want me to start trying?
Immediately start waxing my ass. This is it. Y'all, we're going to start trying now.
Let me lock in right quick.
It's crazy.
But I don't even feel threatened when they say that.
Well, I didn't feel threatened when Alabama's offensive line, after giving up a historic number of sacks, was out here like, we're returning a bully ball.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And they kind of did, though. That offensive line kind of did, though. But that was Tyler Booker. That was an NFL football player coming out here saying that.
That was also under the Saban era. When Nick Saban was like, that shit's not going to fly. We're going to fix that right away. Like, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is the guy where it's like, all right, we're locking in now. Because, I mean, from what I understand, what you're doing right now is what you've been doing previously with Washington, previously with all your other endeavors. Like, he's been labeled as a guy that is a player-led coach. Like, the culture that you have is created by the players. So the fact that apparently he's allegedly, you would assume he's the power that's coming in saying, hey, no more games this year. Like, I don't really trust Kalen DeBoer to enforce it. I would trust a guy like Nick Saban to enforce it because you saw him do that and you saw it be done with great success. But other than that, like, this doesn't feel very threatening to me.
And even if it's just lip service, man, like, can we not have a meeting with our players who are constantly in this podcasting era? Now, like, look, this is a dude hosting a podcast, okay? Can we not have a meeting with these guys? Like, hey, stop saying stupid shit. Stop saying stuff that's going to get you clipped. Go on there and talk about your outfit of the day. Go on there and talk about your recruitment process coming to Alabama. Go on there and talk about anything other than we fitting to get clipped. Now, we run in circles that have players producing podcasts. Mm-hmm. And one of them got cut real quick because they were out here getting clipped by people and having articles written about Jordan Hall saying, crazy stuff about Florida defensive linemen. That's all it takes, one time. And then you correct it and you nip it in the bud, and it's never again. This was a month ago. We had somebody having Alabama's football program looking kind of suspect. A month later, we got another one of these quotes. Got to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like this is something that would not happen under Nick Saban. And I hate doing the not Nick Saban comparison for Kalen DeBoer because it's honestly
they did it. He did it.
It's frankly unfair.
We got to get back. We got to get back to the Bama standard. We got to get back to doing things right. We got to get back to do.
Yeah.
This is also. I know what Bama fans think when they hear this. That's all Milroe's fault. That's Milroe's fault. He was supposed to be the leader of this football team, and he's out here got guys optional workouts. That's Milroe's fault. Thoughts on that one?
I wouldn't doubt it. Would not doubt that one bit.
I wouldn't either. Top 5 college football teams you have had the most fun watching. This is our last topic of the national half hour. I got my 5. You want them?
Let's go ahead and get the one that we all are going to have on our list out of the way. 2019 LSU is on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Without a doubt.
Honestly, didn't even want it to make my list, but I couldn't think of anyone else.
It's such the perfect answer for that's the most fun team you'll ever have.
Number 5, the Colt Brennan Rainbows.
Solid.
Oh,
yeah, man.
Hawaii.
Anytime I get to watch a guy throw it 60 times, at midnight and put up 45 points against somebody who don't matter out of the Mountain West, I'm there for that. Number 4, 2019 LSU Tigers, as you guys mentioned. Number 3, only one side of the ball. I could watch 2021 Georgia's defense the rest of time. Just turn it on, watch it.
That's
and
fair.
Just be like, wow, look at all these guys. That'd be so fun. Number 2, any Chip Kelly Oregon football team. I had fun watching. That football team was taking snaps at like 14 seconds in real time. This was before all of the rules of like making sure you couldn't, or if you subbed, they had to stand over the ball. We are full fun and gun during the Chip Kelly years.
70 on teams.
Absolutely. And then number 1 for me, by far, wide margin, that Reggie Bush USC Trojans team was like my initiation to I love this sport. I'm gonna do everything I can to watch this sport and talk about the sport the rest of my life. That 2005 USC Trojans team was nuts.
That's a good shout.
I was a little too young to watch the Trojans.
Yeah, you got to think I'm 10, turning 11. Like I'm just now getting into like I think I'm gonna be a football player, and Reggie Bush is out here running amok among everyone.
Yeah, that was your introduction to Reggie Bush. Mine would have been midnight YouTube deep find, like Reggie Bush highlights. What are this?
Do yourself a favor, go watch Reggie Bush versus Fresno State. He was nuts in that football game. And then a week later, I think, front flips into the end zone against UCLA. The front flipping from Reggie Bush was, oh my God, so awesome. And then you see the high school photo of Reggie, and he's got his glasses on, and I'm pretty sure he was a flautist in the band. He was a flautist as a
That's
freshman.
not how you play the flute, by the way.
It's not how you play the flute?
That's a clarinet, my guy.
Play the flute this way, right?
There you go.
A flautist.
Jazz flute?
Jeff Flautist.
For my list, I had a 2019 LSU at number 5. Number 4, Ole Miss 2015. This was like the Land Shark rebirth, where the defense kind of started to bring that back, and everybody was like, Land Sharks? There's no sharks in Mississippi. Like, what do we got going on here?
The other mascot can be a little...
Yeah, but this team had like Chad Kelly, Evan Ingram, Laquan Treadwell. Like, this was just a fun time for me to watch Ole Miss football.
Chad Kelly, an interesting end to that one.
Yeah, but
number 3, Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel. That's like
I forgot them.
That's like peak childhood for me of college football, especially considering like that was it for me. Number 2, this is going to be a weird one, but it's just like a personal attachment for me. Oklahoma State Justin Blackman years. When I was a kid, if I found a team
Todd Monken lover.
I know. Shout out
Todd Monken. I know. Lover.
I was predestined for this. Okay, I was way ahead of the curve. But if I found a team on college football that I loved using, I immediately started watching them on Saturdays. And once I found out Justin Blackman was a cheat code, I then became a Cowboys fan on Saturdays. Shout out
Brandon Whedon.
The number 1, RG3 Baylor. That was the late night football games for me. It was, I have to watch Robert Griffin III tonight. It was a must for me.
It's a good one.
So my number 5 was 2012 Texas A&M with Johnny Football, obviously. Number 1 for me was 2019 LSU. I'll go ahead and get those 2 out of the way. My number 4 was the 2016 Louisville Cardinals.
Oh,
what Lamar Jackson would do to teams was so incredible. And that game they had against Clemson was just an instant classic.
A quick one that reminded me of that Illinois team that made a Rose Bowl.
Yeah, the one that
Bronco
beat Ohio State.
Or whatever Mendenhall's first name was. Yeah, that was a good
Fun
that was
team.
a fun team.
Fun team. My number 3 was 2007 West Virginia with Pat White. Fun team to watch.
Yeah.
And then my number 2 was the 2013 Auburn Tigers. As much as I hate to say that, because obviously what they did, the kick six, what they did against Georgia, just all throughout the year, that was a fun team to watch. Nick Marshall was a very sporadic player. Trey Mason going for 300 yards in the SEC championship. Like, they were a very entertaining team to watch, even if I was hate watching them.
Nick Carwell with a deep pull right here. Adrian Peterson, the real Adrian Peterson. Y'all probably don't even know about this.
Probably not, no.
Adrian Peterson at Georgia Southern, the AP, the original AP.
No.
I think he led the nation in rushing 3 years in a row and out of the option. That dude's highlight tapes are insane. The only reason I know this is because my high school quarterbacks coach, Durant Rice, was his backup. And man, would he sing that guy's praises.
I didn't even know another Adrian Peterson existed.
He's the real AP. I'm telling you. Go pull it up after the show. Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern. Insane. A dude's like 230 pounds, just running amok in mid-major football. So yeah, that was a fun one to watch for sure. We good?
Yep.
Let's transition to the local hour. Go ahead and hit that intro because we just love to talk that dog. Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You like that? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? We are back for another 35 minutes here before that tremendous patriotic hockey game kicks off or drops the puck at 8 o'clock. We got some news today. I woke up this morning and I texted Jonathan and I said, hey, man, numbers are down. Pray for news. Next thing you know, Carson Beck's cars are stolen.
Multiple
cars, plural. So yeah, had a Lambo and a Mercedes-Benz and old Cavender's Tahoe, I would assume, got stolen. Or maybe she's out here driving an Escalade.
Why is she driving a Tahoe?
Well, she's driving an SUV.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Why?
You know why.
No, I don't. That's what I'm asking.
Tax deductions.
Okay.
It's the only thing I can think of. Why you need to drive a vehicle that big unless you need something to write off?
So she's driving a lifted Tahoe?
I guess it was a Range Rover, perhaps.
Okay.
Range Rover
I could see that.
That checks out.
But yeah, I'm with you though. When I hear SUV,
Expedition.
I think big Expedition.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
You out here driving that Escalade around town?
The Ford Excursion.
Dude, good pull. A Ford Excursion, man. What a gas guzzler that thing was.
God.
Holy hell. It's like, hey, let's make an F-250 for the common housewife.
Exactly.
Huh? What? But yeah, anyways, car stolen. Thoughts?
He's had a rough year, man. Like, you go from your 2024 season didn't go what you thought it would be. Everyone blamed you for it, despite the fact that your wide receiver core and just basically all the talent around you got worse. Then you have a season-ending elbow injury. Don't go to the draft. Then you have to transfer to Miami, and now your cars get stolen. By the way, you've been the butt of like every joke for like the last 3 months. I'm starting to feel bad for Carson.
Man, there is one company that does him bad every time they tweet out an edit. Every time. It's like, hey, how goofy can we make this guy look? Let's get that. But yeah, it's been a bad run for Carson.
I definitely feel bad for him. Just like kind of rehashing everything that has happened for him. But in like the fact that it couldn't have just been one car, it had to be three cars. Like,
that's my thing. And also, why do we have two vehicles? That's what I tweeted about today. Why? And look, I don't know if he purchased them. I'm under the belief that he might have. But I don't know if these were NIL deals or whatever. But why do we need two vehicles?
Yeah,
is the $1 $250,000 car not enough? We got to have another one.
I guess. Sure.
I mean, I have two vehicles, so I'm gonna sit out of this conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. It's a Danger Ranger and a workup car.
Whoa!
I mean, dude, I got two vehicles in my driveway too. They're not $250,000 vehicles.
Dang, dude.
I didn't mean to shit on you, but come on.
I'm just saying I'm not gonna join the why do we have two vehicles discussion here, because
I know why you have
I feel like
two
I'd be
vehicles.
throwing stones at a glass house.
You like to work on the second vehicle.
True.
It's a tune-up car.
It's true.
Because you got hobbies and shit. Not, I got $250,000 cars sitting in a Miami parking lot
Yeah, I
ready
don't
to
have
get
that.
robbed.
Definitely don't have that.
You know?
He needs a weekend car.
Yeah, my weekend car, my daily driver, and my Mercedes Benz. Mm-hmm. Wait, which one's the Benz is definitely the daily driver. The Lambo's the
For sure.
I got a
I would
Lambo.
think so. I don't know. I don't know enough about that to know.
I don't either. But even if he's leasing these two vehicles, right? A lease on a Lambo is like $4,000 a month.
Yeah, appreciates.
We're out here leasing a Mercedes Benz for probably $2,500. If we are best case scenario, these are NIL deals, which I question. Are we just eating that money at these car dealerships? Because I don't know how many people walking into a Lambo dealership buying one because Carson Beck's driving it. But if they are leased, we're still losing. We're losing $7,000 a month on car payments. That's insane.
Just appreciate fast as hell, so you have to pay your losses when you turn it back. This isn't the Dave Ramsey podcast.
No, it's not. Either way. All right. So yeah, bad news.
Tough day.
Sorry to hear that, Carson.
Hey, tough day, and it sounds like one of them's been found. The Benz has been found. Lambo's still out on the streets.
Oh, so they did find another one?
They did find the Mercedes. They're still looking for the Lambo. That's probably chopped and chopped by now, I would imagine.
Most likely, yes.
Unfortunately. The robbers I saw, the thieves did do a smart move. They hopped in the Lambo, maybe it was the Benz, and there was a bag in there with multiple iPads and a laptop.
Toss that shit out.
Tossed it immediately.
That's a good idea.
They found it right by the apartment.
Why are you leaving your iPad and laptop in the car, brother?
I don't know, but if you... it's not studying his playbook, no doubt.
Yeah, come on, man.
God. I mean, why isn't your playbook with you at all times, Carson?
That's how we're going to spin it.
Why is your playbook in the car? It should be in the house. You should be looking over. You just got there. And that's what John Gruden's probably telling him.
Poor guy.
You don't care about ball? You don't keep your playbook on you at all times? Yeah. All right. Enough jokes about that. Real news. Georgia has added another staffer onto the list. This is a long list. Now, there has been a new rule this offseason in college football. I don't know if you know this, but what used to be off the field coaches are no more. Every coach on the staff is allowed to be at practice whenever they want to, at all times. The limit of actual involvement from coaching staffs is no more. You can have the biggest staff that you possibly want. And Georgia added Ty Hatcher today to the staff as an offensive analyst. He will be in charge of, I believe, quality control. Not in charge of it, but he will be a quality control assistant for the Georgia offense. Those of you who don't know who Ty Hatcher is, this is what I'm calling the first full circle hire for Kirby Smart. Chris Hatcher, Ty's dad, actually gave Kirby Smart his first coaching job at Valdosta State back in 2000. So you can imagine how cool of a moment this was for Kirby Smart to be able to hire someone who is the son of the guy who gave him his start in college football coaching. Now, that being said, this is not your typical nepotistic hire. All right. This is a rising star in the world of college football coaching. What a start to this career for Ty Hatcher. Obviously, his dad coached a crap load of football and relayed a bunch of information to him. His dad, kind of known, Chris Hatcher is for being not the inventor of the air raid, but really I'm going to take the air raid, bring it out of high school football and really run it in the college ranks to success. And it's kind of one of the patriarchs of the air raid system. So you obviously have a litany of information and a plethora of football knowledge coming down from dad. But this is a guy whose his first job in college football as a graduate assistant was under Bill O'Brien as an offensive analyst over there at Alabama. He then goes to work for Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, then goes to Oklahoma, now comes to Georgia. By the way, 25 years old.
Yeah. So my question with this is, Kirby Smart does these things with the next 4 to 5 years plan. Is there a plan for this guy to slowly move up the ranks as a coach?
Ain't shit slow about this arc.
Or, you know what I'm saying, like to creep up and be like, hey, now he's an analyst. Now he's a wide receivers coach. Now I'm not firing or hiring anyone. I'm just saying, now he's a position coach. Now, maybe 5 or 6 years from now, he's the OC. Like, is that kind of the plan you think?
This is stop 5 in 5 years for this guy.
Okay.
Maybe 4.5. Since he got out of playing college football. I would imagine this guy continues to jump around and take promotions everywhere he goes. Tremendously connected, obviously, you can imagine from his dad.
And past experience at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you work under all those staffs and you bounce around like that. I would imagine Kirby's got some type of plan to maybe try to hold him on as long as he can, but you don't really hold guys like this very long. This was one of the first things that I heard about Fran Brown when he came to Georgia. He signs at Georgia, and the first thing I hear is, hey, Jimmy Sexton's his agent. And I said, huh? Yeah. Jimmy Sexton is this guy's agent. He has one of 2 position coaches in all of college football that Jimmy Sexton represents. That just tells you dude's going to go very fast up the ranks. I don't know if this guy has representation, but again, this pathway right now at just 25 years old tells me you're going to go somewhere soon.
He's moving.
Absolutely. So that is the news for today. Kirby, you had a game you wanted to play today.
Yeah, so obviously we've got the NFL Combine coming up. We'll be there a week from today, actually.
Yeah, we leave next Wednesday.
Combine is the prerequisite to the NFL Draft, obviously. So I kind of wanted to play a game with us. I'm going to name 2 Georgia Bulldogs, and you guys will pick which one you think will be drafted ahead of the other. So the first one, for example, between Jalen Walker and Michael Williams, who do you see going first in this NFL Draft? Because I've seen a couple
going first.
I've seen a couple where Jalen Walker's a top 10 pick. I've seen Michael be a top 10 pick. So I'm kind of interested. What makes you think Michael's going first?
Because of the reasons that a guy like Nolan Smith dropped. Now, it's different because Jalen has background playing off ball as an inside linebacker. But I think most people that will draft Jalen will recognize, at least in my opinion, is Jalen Walker a better edge rusher or inside linebacker?
I think he's a better inside linebacker.
I personally think he's a better edge rusher. What do you think?
Yeah, I was probably going to lean edge.
That's where, in my opinion, that's where they first got him onto the field at the University of Georgia. Everything you heard about, hey, this guy needs to develop, was at the inside linebacker position during his time. Now, when you get drafted by one of these teams, and you can say you're an inside linebacker or an outside linebacker, and your team that drafts you might be a 3-4 football team that has the ability for you to be a hybrid player. And the comp that he's constantly getting right now is Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is an edge rusher. That is what he is. All right. I think 22 sacks in the last 2 years in the NFL. Okay. He gets after the quarterback on most downs, and he plays on the line of scrimmage most downs. If that's what you're drafting Jalen Walker to do, you're gonna have a physical profile that does not meet the requisite requirements at that position. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is a guy that's going to go to the NFL Combine next week, measure somewhere around 6'2", be somewhere around 245, 250 pounds, and you're going to have to decide, is he this or is he that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that alone is going to mean he's going to draft. I think he's going to be outside of the top 15. Whereas when you go to draft a guy like Michael Williams, pick and stick. We're going to draft him. He's going to be a defensive end for us for the next extension of his rookie contract.
Yeah, I think you bank on Michael Williams because there really isn't questions about Michael. It's okay, he's 6'5", he's 265, and he played at the University of Georgia for 3 years, started at the University of Georgia for 3 years. The only thing that we maybe have to develop is maybe he has to get into his pass rusher bag a little bit more. Maybe we got to develop that. He's going to stop the run, though. We know that.
By the way, I think we're talking about the difference between 12 and 15.
No, yeah, it's
like 13
the margin,
and 17.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why I asked the question, because I mean,
Yeah.
I think they're picked within 5 picks of each other.
I personally think Malachi goes behind all 3 of them, both of them,
I believe that,
which is crazy to me, based off what the first 2 years at least.
Positional demand too.
Yeah, that too.
For
All
sure.
right, moving on to the next one. This one was kind of interesting to me. I don't know if you'll have a definite answer on this. Dan Jackson or Arian Smith, who gets drafted first? Dan Jackson's stock kind of took a hit, I think, when he wasn't invited to the Combine. And I think he missed an opportunity to really increase his draft stock, obviously. But I'm interested to see what you guys think of this one.
I think Dan's like late 4th, early 5th right now, based off what I've seen. And Arian has a chance to go in the 3rd, maybe. Depending on it all really depends on what he runs.
Right.
If Arian runs a 4.38, which I don't think is happening, I think he's going to fall down boards. If he runs a 4.28, he might be a 2nd round, 3rd round pick.
Right. I mean, we saw Xavier Worthy do this last year.
Yeah.
Now, he's not going to break the record, but
Also, does not have, I don't think, near the production that Xavier had coming out of college.
no.
So, but what you're saying is the speed is paramount.
The speed, people, it shoots you up the board.
And people take stabs at wide receivers earlier in the draft than they do at safety. And not that Dan Jackson should be labeled as one of these stabs, but that's how people are going to view him. That's how the NFL draft is going to view him, of like, hey, we need some more safety depth. We're in the 5th round. Well, this Dan Jackson guy who's been playing for Georgia is around, and he also did pretty good at his pro day. I think we should draft him, where Arian Smith actually gets a chance to go in front of all of these organizations, blaze the 40-yard.
I remember last year, it felt like there were 8 or 9 wide receivers that were mentioned in the first round conversation, from Brian Thomas and Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison, all the way down Malik Neighbors, all the way down to Ladd. Ladd got first round projections last year.
There were people saying Johnny Wilson might sneak in there.
Yeah.
Like just because of his size.
There were 15 guys that felt like they were drafted last year in the top 3 rounds. I don't feel that way. Maybe we'll learn when we go to Indy. I don't feel that way. It's being talked about that way at the wide receiver class this year.
No, not at all.
All right. Who's next?
Next one is Trevor Etienne or Jared Wilson.
Oof. All right. I think Etienne's like RB6, RB7 right now on a lot of boards. He's down there. I mean, you got to think Genty, the kid from Iowa, Omarion Hampton from UNC.
He's climbed up recently too.
Yeah. There's a bunch of guys that are shooting up boards right now. Trevor not being one of them. It's Jared Wilson for me. I think Jared Wilson is going to be a top 90 pick because of the positional versatility or the positional need.
I definitely think by position, Jared Wilson will be selected first. I think it just becomes one of those things of positional need. Like you get to this interesting second and third round period where there's just a run on running backs where teams go, that's a really talented running back. We might as well take him here. We might as well take him here. Next thing you know, 4 or 5 have been drafted within the second or third round. And if a team takes a chance on Trevor Etienne based on what he did this year, I think there's a good chance, like you said. But Jared Wilson's one of these guys where a really good center is always going to be like in that 3 to 2 to 3 range, I think. So that's kind of why I've had been interested.
I did some research just real quick. My answer was going to be Jared Wilson. It still is Jared Wilson, but I just wanted to kind of figure out what
the market is. Yeah,
for Etienne, because when he declared at Georgia, he was listed as undrafted. Like that was his projection at the time.
Damn.
Now since the Senior Bowl, he's now being projected as a 5th round pick, which I think is probably around where he's going to be drafted, because I think like the first 2 rounds, if you are in need of a running back, that's when you're going to take him. And then there's kind of a lull where running backs really aren't coming off the board because people are stacking up on more interior guys on both lines of scrimmages, or they're getting another linebacker or anything around that, or some skill position players. And then another run of running backs goes, like you were mentioning. So I think that Jared is going to be one of these 3rd or 4th rounders. And I think that right now this could change after the combine, but I think that Etienne's ceiling is like a 4th round draft pick right now.
Yeah. And it is interesting because like if you're not a 2nd or 3rd round running back, you're probably going in the 7th, where centers, like we said, it's very safe. Like 2nd, 3rd round, sometimes you slip to the 4th, but other than that, like you always go within those rounds. All right, the last pair.
Hold on. I got to figure out what in the hell Roman Black's out here doing to be able to do all of this. He says, yes, I'm here just watching my daughter while my wife makes dinner, also playing some college football 25. So here's what we got going on. At Roman Black's household, we got the wife making dinner. We got you apparently watching your daughter while watching us while playing college football 25. Buddy, I think I can handle a lot of things going on around. Sheesh, man, you are a king. That is impressive. Roman. All right, what's next?
Final one, and this one I think is going to be kind of tough. Xavier Truss or Warren Brinson?
Ooh. If it were me, give me the 42 career starts.
Now, who do you think takes first? Because
I'm going with Warren.
Yeah. Upside. Warren's ceiling as an NFL football player considerably higher than Xavier Truss's.
Correct.
So it'll be Warren. But I feel like if you're drafting 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, if I were an NFL GM, we would be looking for upside for sure, but I'm looking for somebody I know can make my roster. Nothing worse than drafting a bunch of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders that never do anything for your football team. I'm not saying Warren is that. I'm just saying in that range, 4th through 7th, I'd be looking for guys I know can play NFL football. Warren is one of those. He's definitely an NFL football player, but I would have questions about like longevity.
Sure.
It's a guy that was banged up throughout his career at Georgia, where I would look at Xavier and I'm like, well, how many guys am I going to be able to draft in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that have played 45 games in college football in the SEC and started?
They can play pretty much any position we need them to.
Yeah, I think that it would be a conversation of Xavier Truss he is right now is exactly what we're going to get. Like this guy has played an immense amount of football, and so what we see now from his last game at the University of Georgia to day 1 on our roster, that's what we're going to get. Whereas Warren, it wasn't until this past season where you kind of finally saw him put all of the pieces together. Like he had 2 good seasons, 2 really good seasons.
He flashed a lot in 2023, just didn't finish.
Exactly,
Never
and that's what I'm saying.
finished in
Is
2023.
this season was about answering that question, and he did, and he's a lot more consistent in finishing those big plays. So it's like he just now arrived to what feels like his ceiling. Maybe he could even reach it a little bit higher, but that also might mean there's a little bit more of a developmental stage for him.
Roman Black says his daughter's sitting next to him holding her own game controller. Show no mercy. Show no mercy.
Teach him young.
That's the classic.
Show zero.
That's the classic. Give your younger sibling the controller that's not plugged in.
Yeah.
Is it hers? Isn't.
Nah, plug that thing in and beat that girl 160-0. Let her learn her first lesson, even though she's only 2 years old.
That's character building.
Yeah, it'll make her stronger.
Shout out.
Shout out. Are we done with that?
Yes, that was the last one I had.
All right, I got one for you. Higher drafted, Tate Ratledge or
I thought you had one.
I'm making one up on the fly.
Thinking of one.
Tate Ratledge or Dylan Fairchild.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with Tate because I think he's a classic name hire, one, but the injuries might scare teams away towards the end. And that,
Plus, like, the NFL has... They fell in love with Dylan Fairchild before he was like even set foot on the field at Georgia.
I mean, there were mock drafts last year like Dylan Fairchild's the first.
Yeah, I mean,
you know why? That's those NFL scouts going through that building.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And going, hey, who's the 6'5", 330 pounder over there that don't look like he's got a pound of body fat on him? And someone just told me he squats 650 pounds, and he wrestled in high school. And he started for you guys for 2 years. Who's that guy? Give me that guy.
The answer is Dylan Fairchild.
The answer should be Dylan Fairchild.
Yeah.
I think the NFL will look at it like that. I think Dylan Fairchild is going to be one of those guys that might get drafted inside the first 2 rounds. And Mel Kiper's sitting there going, well, I didn't have him this high on my board. And everybody's like, oh, the NFL guys that know ball are going to be like, well, this guy's a plug-and-play starter.
He was one of these guys that really struggled at Georgia last year. I would have rather him go in the 4th round, but we'll see how it plays out.
The one thing I am getting hung up on...
Go ahead.
The one thing I am getting hung up on, though, is I think Tate Ratledge is probably the most recognizable offensive lineman in college football right now.
That does a lot for mock drafts.
It does a lot for mock drafts, and honestly, it even does a lot for draft stock.
What's another Mel Kiper go-to on the impersonation? I ain't got no one other than that.
I haven't watched enough Mel Kiper, honestly.
Been a while. All right. Them maple syrup loving sons of just don't have a chance. Don't have a chance, baby. USA. We'll see you Monday.
Hell yeah.